I brought it just in case people would be asking, so.
And I'd like to invite up Eagle Scout candidate Daniel Kowalski and ask that he would lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance. I'd ask that everyone please stand.
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yes, Mr. Batkins?
Here.
Mr. Batanti?
Here.
Mr. Servil?
Here.
Mr. Tominello?
Here.
Mr. York?
Here.
Mr. Witt? Here. Mr. Verkest?
Here. Thank you. Next, approval of the consent agenda, including approval of the regular board meeting and public hearing minutes of December 12th, 2016, and approval of the bills in the amount of $1,586,807.74. I'll be looking for a motion.
Make that motion.
Is there support?
Support.
All right, we got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Batkins to approve the consent agenda. Any discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. During the board forum, there was a discussion regarding, a couple discussions regarding the agenda. There were some proposed changes to the agenda. One was the addition of I proposed item F4 regarding a discussion for a ZBA fee, so I'd propose that we add that. Another was an additional item to discuss in closed session regarding an attorney's opinion. And then I would like to ask that we move item B1 up to A1.
B2.
Well, actually, A1, because I know that
No, you're moving B2 up.
I'm sorry, B2. Okay, I got you. I'm sorry. Item B2 to A1. To allow the young man here, he's a senior in high school, but he's also enrolled at Macomb Community College, and he's got a course today at 7:30, so he doesn't want to be late for his first class and leave a bad impression.
I'll approve the, so we're gonna make that A1?
A1.
Move A1 to A2 then, right?
Yes, sir.
I'll make the motion with those changes. Support.
All right, we've got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Tominello. Thank you for the clarification, Mr. Witt. Discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Those opposed, motion carries. So therefore, without delay, I'd like to invite up to the podium Mr. Daniel Kowalski III. Board members, in our board packet is a resolution of appreciation for the efforts of Daniel Kowalski III. He's working toward the rank of Eagle Scout, and he recently finished this project, and the resolution reads as follows. Whereas the Charter Township of Harrison Beautification Commission identified a need for pet way stations along the Freedom Trail and at several township parks, and whereas Daniel Kowalski III, in pursuit of achieving the rank of Eagle Scout, assumed the responsibility of this pet way station project, and whereas Daniel Kowalski III researched, fundraised, purchased, and installed 5 pet way stations located at Orville Awney Park, Emmerich Park, Tucker Park, and along the Freedom Trail at Crocker and also at North Point Parkway. And whereas through his efforts, the pets, visitors, and residents of Harrison Township can enjoy a clean and safe experience in our parks and along the Freedom Trail. And now therefore be it resolved that the Charter Township of Harrison Board of Trustees does hereby accept this generous donation, and be it further resolved that the Charter Township Harrison Board of Trustees expresses our most sincere appreciation for this donation and wishes Mr. Kowalski continued success in his future endeavors. Is there a motion?
So moved. Support.
All right. Got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Tominello. Any discussion, board members?
Mr. Supervisor, just want to mention to Mr. Kowalski that public service is a great thing, and we all need to keep doing it. And I really appreciate what you've done here and hope you inspire others to do the same and continue to do so yourself. So thank you very much. I appreciate that.
I don't know if you'd like to take a minute to explain to the board the project and what exactly it is that you did. I'd ask that you turn the microphone on, nope, the one by hand, right?
Yeah, we gotta use the hand one, that, I gotta,
There
I
you
gotta
go.
find out where we can get a new one of these mics. They were
All right.
12 years ago when we bought them.
All right, so we started out by taking a power post hole digger and drilling a 46-inch deep hole into the ground, and then we took some pea gravel and poured 4 inches from the bottom of the hole. So there are 42 inches left to put the post in, and so we set the post, and then we backfilled it with pea gravel, and then we made it look nice on the top, because citizens don't want to be seeing pea gravel around the post. And so that's day one. Day two is we got to the workstation, the 5 workstations, and we set a template of where to drill the pilot holes. And so we drilled the pilot holes, and then we set the dispenser above the pilot holes, and then drilled in fasteners to fasten them in place. Same with the can and lid. And then we put trash liners in the trash cans, and then we put the dog waste bags into the dispenser, locked it up, and then went to the next station. So that's how the process is.
Okay. And did you raised a certain amount of funds? Did
Yes.
you exceed your fundraising goal?
Yes, I did.
And then also included with that, what about trash bags and future pet waste bags?
So we got enough trash liners for the project, but we also got more to supply the Harrison Township Beautification Commission with more bags so that they can maintain the project.
So we got extra supplies.
That's right.
Excellent.
The same with the dog waste bags.
Okay.
And what I have here is a check for $22.85 to help maintain this project further, to help pay for the bags and liners. So I got this check for you
All right.
guys.
All right, good. If there's no further discussion, we'll vote on the resolution, or, and then we can accept the check and take a photograph.
I'd just ask that if Mr. York would amend his motion to accept the donation.
Oh,
on top
absolutely,
of-
absolutely.
Thank you.
Tremendous
right.
support.
All right, good. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Yeah, Mr. York,
Yes.
Mr. Tominelli?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Servil?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkowski?
Yes. Thank you. Ask for a round of applause for Mr. Coffey. Would you be willing to take a photograph? Take a brief recess.
I feel like I should have photobombed that, but
I think you did. I think you did. I think you
I
did.
feel like I needed to stand up and photobomb them.
Might have been unclear on the background.
You know, that shiny head,
Yeah, right.
you know, blurred the picture.
And again, thank you, Mr. Qualky, on behalf of the residents and the pets of Harrison Township.
Yes, thank you. And people's lawns appreciate that too.
That's right.
My shoes.
Okay. Let's see, the next on the agenda would be announcements. So a couple of announcements. Due to the work being performed at the collapse site at 15 Mile Interceptor Sewer Line in Fraser, our residents are encouraged to continue water conservation efforts through January. We do have information about the water conservation, the efforts on our website. It's important for the residents of Harrison Township to know that the sanitary sewer flows that leave our township, all of those flows, as well as for communities north of us, those flows run southward along the I-94 corridor, and then roughly about plus or minus where Shook Road crosses I-94, they begin to head eastward along 15 Mile Road. So all of our sanitary flows do go through the section in Fraser that collapsed. So it's important for us to reduce our consumption during these times while they can finish the bypass pumping operations so that they can begin to work on a more permanent solution. There was some discussion on the part of trustees asking for a brief description or explanation of the problem and how it could or could not happen in Harrison Township. It's important to understand that the section of the sewer system that collapsed is some 55 feet under the ground, 11 foot in diameter, a very, very large multi-community section of the sewer system. The only portion of the interceptor system that is anywhere near Harrison Township, as I mentioned, runs parallel to I-94, roughly in the area between Interstate 94 and Executive Drive, along that side, along the eastern side. So it really doesn't run through neighborhoods or really in too many places where it would even be close to a business or a home. It was built at a different time, so the problems that have occurred on 15 Mile Road, at least by some theory, has at least in part to do with the way the construction was done, possibly the soils. We haven't seen those problems with the section that's nearest us. But the other portion of our sanitary sewer system is a much more localized system. The majority of our sanitary sewer lines are much, much smaller in diameter. We may have some collector pipes, maybe say in the 3-foot range, 21-inch range, things like that. The majority of them are a lot smaller, and they're a lot closer to the ground. So in the event that there is a failure in a sewer line that would accept soil and compromise the soil above the sewer, we're not talking about something that's 55 feet underground. We're talking about something that might be 8 or 10 feet underground on average. So the amount of soil that could possibly be compromised and fall in that hole is substantially smaller. So our system is very similar to just about every other system in the Metro Detroit area. These localized failures typically don't run anywhere near or under a home. And if there was some sort of a failure, it results in a sinkhole that looks like a minor depression in your front yard, not the sort of thing that would swallow up a home or cause significant property damage. So as disappointing as this is, the short answer in the interest of explaining to the residents is that we're not likely at risk of this kind of a failure causing property damage in Harrison Township. But in fairness to the folks in Fraser, it's really not Fraser's system, it's our system. It's a regional system. Sanitary sewer flows from as far away as Washington Township flow through that section of the sanitary sewer. So it's our problem, it's our system. Satisfactory?
Thank you.
Yep. The township offices will be closed Monday, January 16th in the observance of Martin Luther King Jr. Day, and our offices will reopen on Tuesday, January 17th at 8 a.m. Harrison Township Library has a whole list of activities. If you visit their website, htlibrary.org, you can find out more information. There's links to their website on our website, so for information on all the events in the township, such as the library events or the water use and restrictions that we're being asked to do, there are links on our township website, harrison-township.org, or you can always contact the supervisor's office, 586-466-1445. Are there any other announcements?
You know, I've had a few calls regarding the sewer myself, and the question that I was asking is who pays for that? Because there was an article actually in the Macomb Daily, I believe about a week and a half ago regarding that, and unfortunately, we're all gonna pay for it. They'll do the project, I guess they're gonna do bonds, and at some point in the future, my office will receive what our portion of that is, and we can update people at that time, but that'll be an additional charge, the MCC interceptor charge that's on your water bill. That's gonna go up because of this project. Some amount of money, and I at this point, we couldn't even tell you what that is, but we can update the citizens when we receive it.
When it was, gee whiz, I'm trying to remember, the early 2000s, when through federal court action, the federal judge basically awarded or gave the interceptor system throughout the suburban area to the suburbs. The OMID district, Oakland Macomb Interceptor District, was formed, and flows from each community are measured. We attach to that system at 3 locations, and the amount that flows through those meters is monitored, and the same for all of the other customers. They look at historical flows, they look at the total flow, average that out, and we are then, in essence, responsible for a percent or a share of that cost based on our flow. There's been millions of dollars of upgrades to the system, both in the underground sense, in lining and grouting and repairing the interceptors. There was a substantial rebuild to the pump station at 15 Mile Road, which is really at the south end of Union Lake, right where it would dead end on I-94. Millions of dollars of upgrades there. Again, all of our flow goes through that. In each of those cases, as Mr. York said, bonds are issued. They look at the percent, so many years, they finance those bonds, and we're carrying that load. It's important to note that we were supposedly paying that when DWSD owned those. However, every time they did a bond issue, number one, Detroit's credit rating was certainly not as good as the suburbs, so we always paid a higher interest. And Detroit slapped on a 1% service charge on top of an interest rate that was well beyond what we would qualify for. So it'd sort of be like going to that brother-in-law that doesn't have any money and asking him to pull a mortgage on your behalf and charging you 1% while he's at it. So, well, on one hand, I certainly don't like the condition of the interceptors and the way that they were received by us. The flip side is we're getting, though, that work done, number one, with monies that are probably bonded or loaned at the lowest rate we could expect. And the people who are overseeing the work are accountable to us. They are elected representatives that we directly influence and vote for and choose, so.
I did see on the news tonight, Governor Snyder said that the state might kick in on that too, so.
That's good news.
Yeah.
On top of bad news, it's still good news, eh?
Any money takes it off our bottom line,
Right.
the citizens back, so.
All right, next on our agenda, we're fortunate to have here our newly elected county commissioner, Robert Leonetti. So he'd asked to be able to address the board, so we invite Mr. Leonetti to the podium.
Thank you.
Maybe it was on.
Yeah, I think it is on. Okay. Thank you, Supervisor Verkest and board members. I appreciate you giving me the opportunity to come here, and more or less I wanted to do is formally introduce myself to the board. I've met many of you on the campaign trail, and I want to extend a handout to let you know that, I'm here to help you. We both have the same constituents. Whatever I can do at the county level to help Harrison Township is certainly what my job is to do. And I will certainly feed back information to you. We talked here briefly about the sinkhole. That information is going to be probably coming up to the board, and I'll have updated information on what the bonding issues are going to be, what Candace Miller has to say about the issue. She's our Public Works Director, as you know. And anything else that comes to my attention, I will certainly promptly forward that information to you folks so that you have that information to pass on to the constituents. In terms of what I've been doing, I've been going around meeting the department heads. It's important that we do that. I've met just about every department head except Candace Miller formally. We did bump into each other and talk briefly, but obviously she's been pretty busy the last several weeks. Tomorrow night at the board is a big meeting. We're going to pick our next chairman of the board, our vice chair and sergeant at arms, and then we're going to go over our rules. One of the things that's important in terms of being a commissioner from this district is to get on certain committees. I think most important is to get on the committee for public safety. As you know, the sheriff patrols our areas, and public safety falls under the sheriff's department. And so I want to make sure I'm on that committee so that I'm able to help out in any way I can for whatever the sheriff does here for Harrison Township. Another committee that it looks like I'm going to be on and possibly vice chair is finance. Finance is really one of the most important committees you can be on up there at the commission level. So I think it's important for me to be able to see how the county applies its budget. And finally, I think the last committee I'm going to try to get on is roads. Obviously, that's an important thing here as well. In terms of talking to constituents, one thing that has come up has been the Party Bridge. I've had some constituents talk to me about that. I am gonna meet, one of the gentlemen I have to meet with is still with Rhodes. I'm gonna meet with him, and I know there was some promises made. I want to verify those promises, of course, and I want to talk to him about what his intentions are. We're kind of at his mercy, and I think most of you folks know that. I want to let any of the constituents who are watching this program know that as well. But I'm going to try to get to the bottom of what their intentions are so that I can get a time frame, or at least an answer from them on what they want to do. It is going to be very budget-oriented, so there are priorities always when there are budgets, and so I think the Department of Roads is going to want to do some things first before they get to that, but let me see what their intentions are. I've had an opportunity to meet with Commissioner Marino, who's now State Representative Marino. Had a great transition, great discussion, so I'm up to speed on any issues. And finally, I want to thank the Kukla and congratulate the Kukla family. I have known his brother, actually was a locker mate with him in high school, and I've finally had an opportunity to meet the entire family, and I can certainly know who the fortunate son is, so congratulations on your promotion. Other than that, again, I just wanted to state that if there's anything anybody on this board needs, please, please, please call me. I'm here to help you in any way I can with helping the constituents of Harrison Township. Thank you.
You wouldn't happen to have a card yet already, do you?
What's that?
A card?
A business card?
Yeah, with your,
you my,
no, that's fine, just email it
do
to
that.
us. Yeah, that's fine, I didn't know if you had a card or not.
not yet. They haven't given that. Tomorrow I'll probably get that.
Okay.
Thank you.
Wonderful, thank you.
I can say I've had a chance already in a short time, actually even before Rob officially took over as county commissioner, to work with him, and I can only anticipate good dealings, and he's been cooperative, knowledgeable, so I think we're very fortunate to have Mr. Leonetti as our county commissioner.
Thank you.
Thank you. Next on our agenda, item B1, a resolution honoring Val. Mr. Witt?
Yes, the resolution reads, whereas Valerie Kleiss has given distinguished service, dedication, and devotion to Harrison Township, and whereas Valerie Kleiss served as a school bus driver for L'Anse Creuse Public Schools during her 30-year tenure, and whereas Valerie Kleiss served as a senior shuttle driver in the senior center during her over 14-year tenure with Harrison Township, and whereas Valerie Kleiss has provided exceptional dedicated service to the community's school children, senior residents, and disabled residents of the community, and whereas Valerie Kleiss has successfully driven and assisted in the transportation of school children, senior citizens to medical appointments, grocery stores, and senior activities, and whereas Valerie has performed her duties to the highest level of professionalism and courtesy, now therefore be it resolved that on behalf of the residents of Harrison Township, the Board of Trustees wishes to thank Valerie Kleiss for her service to the community and to wish her a long life, happiness, and continued success in her future endeavors.
I'll make that motion.
All right, motion by Mr. York. Support by Mr. Servio. Okay.
I don't know how long Mrs. Kleiss has worked for the township, but it's been a long time.
14
I think
years.
as long as I've been here.
Yeah, 14
She's
years.
been-
And prior to that, 30 years as a school bus driver. So,
I'm pretty sure she drove me to school at some point in time.
Wow,
well, it's a fortunate thing for her to be able to retire, but it's a loss to the citizens and residents of Harrison Township.
what a wonderful lady.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. York?
Yes.
Mr. Servil?
Yes.
Mr. Batkins?
Yes.
Mr. Batanti?
Yes.
Mr. Tominelli?
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkest?
Yes. Thank you. Next on our agenda, item C1, from the clerk's office, Mr. Witt.
Yes, Board. Right prior to Christmas, the chief had approached us with some paperwork for the financing of the ambulance, which we approved at the November 28th regular board meeting. To actually approve the financing, even though we said, like, yes, we approve to finance the vehicle, we need to formally adopt the resolution approving the government obligation contract between the tax exempt leasing corporation and the Charter Township of Harrison. So that's what you have, I want to say it's back on
Looks like
D1.
So I'll make a motion to approve the financing, and somebody wants to support that, I have another comment.
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Servil. Mr. York?
2.79% is a great rate.
Yeah.
Yep, pretty good.
I think that came in better than we thought, so.
That keeps a little liquidity in the fire fund so that in the event that we have an unforeseen expense, we're not strapped for cash, at least in the initial year, so.
I might also add, Mr. Verkest, for residents here and watching, that this was, just so our residents know, this was discussed at some length during a previous meeting. So we went through it, we evaluated the advantages and potential disadvantages. So I just want to convey that so people are aware that it was talked about at some length prior to this.
That's true, as well as at the budget workshop that we held prior,
So
so
it's been,
fair amount of discussion.
exactly.
Yep, yep. All right. Further discussion?
Just one question. I assume council has reviewed this?
And part of the agreement there is that the attorney actually has to send a letter under his letterhead, you know, saying he has reviewed it and we're okay legally to do this, so.
All right.
Does it
Further-
affect the Exhibit B, the payment schedule?
Is what?
My guess would
Timing?
be yes.
Yeah,
So this will be changed?
yeah, it'll be updated.
Have they picked up the other ambulance or not yet? Where are they planning on, not that I want to get off track.
No, it's, this did not delay the process at all. They ordered the chassis, the day after, it was approved by the board. So everything's in the works, it just hasn't come in yet, so we're expecting it.
Yeah, if this would have
Shortly.
delayed it, we would have had a special meeting prior to Christmas. We talked to them and said like, hey, are we good? And they said, don't worry about it.
And I guess for whatever it's worth, I'm not even sure that it would change Exhibit B. I would guess that future payments would be due on 12/15. I'm just guessing that this would delay the first payment. So it's quite possible that it may not.
It was just a question, because
Sure.
12/15's come and gone.
Yeah, we
Yep.
didn't pay any money yet.
Yep, yeah, right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we've got a motion to adopt the resolution approving the government obligation contract between the tax exempt leasing corporation and the Charter Township of Harrison for the refurbishing of the 2003 ambulance by Mr. York and supported by Mr. Servil. Mr. Witt, will you please take the roll call?
Mr. York,
Yes.
Mr. Servil,
Yes.
Mr. Batkins,
Yes.
Mr. Batanti.
Yes.
Mr. Tominello.
Yes.
Mr. Witt, yes. Mr. Verkest.
Yes. All right, good, thanks. Next on our agenda, item C2, regarding some promotions. Chief Lopez.
Good evening, board members. We had a retirement at the fire department. Lieutenant Chris Cian retired back in December, at the end of December. And in order to fill that vacancy, I am asking the board to tonight promote Sergeant Kevin Kukla to the rank of lieutenant, and also then to fill that vacancy that's created with that promotion, to promote firefighter Steve Hart to the rank of sergeant at the fire department.
Make that motion. Support.
Okay, got a motion by Mr. York, support by Mr. Tominello. Any discussion?
Just on a separate note, this obviously creates a vacancy down in the firefighter rank. Are you gonna come like next meeting to do, I know we have to finish civil service and that kind of stuff at the end of the month, but for do the, you know, the background checks and that kind of stuff, or would it be, you know, I mean, should we address it now, or, I mean, last time we approved money to do the background checks as necessary. You're
Or-
gonna have to do, I mean, he's gonna have to do it, it's,
Or are we looking to wait until the March 1st list? I don't know.
I think we'd be
that-
waiting for the
Yes,
list, but, you know.
we would be pursuing a candidate off of the 2017 eligibility list, which
I
becomes
see,
effective
but the
March
point
1st.
being that perhaps after this motion, a motion might be in order to approve funding to begin, you know, the work necessary on the first three, right? The group of three? Is it three or
Five.
Five, I'm sorry, five.
I think we approved, didn't we approve $5,000 or $6,000?
Yeah, but you probably ripped through that so far with the four guys, most of it?
Yeah, there probably wouldn't be anything left.
I don't recall what that motion was for, what amount, so
Yeah.
I don't believe there's very much left
Sure.
from that.
Well, let's pass this motion and then we'll address that.
I just
perhaps.
save him a trip back.
It would-
absolutely.
It would
Same
expedite the
Yeah,
process.
we didn't want to
absolutely.
hold you back. That was the whole,
Right.
you know.
Sure.
issue there.
All right. Any other discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Tominello to promote Sergeant Kevin Kukla to the rank of lieutenant and firefighter Steve Hart to the rank of sergeant, contingent upon passing a 6-month probationary period. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Well, congratulations to Mr. Kukla, or
Yep,
to now
congratulations.
Lieutenant Kukla.
Nice to see you
Did you wanna, yep, we'll take a brief
there.
recess.
And Mr. Hart, who's
Yeah,
Yep.
he's not
Yeah,
here, but also congratulations. to
Lieutenant Kukla and
firefighter
his family are here. Sergeant Hart could not make it tonight.
Hart. Okay. All right,
would like
take
Come
it.
on up.
Yeah.
to recess? Want to make a speech? A prepared speech?
She's got a couple notes, pulls out like,
Right, right, right. I was like that, people say, I have a couple comments and making it pull out like a book.
Kevin, turn the other way. So, there you go.
The improper uniform.
Yes, congratulations. Do you want to take a couple pictures with your family, or, I mean,
Don't have Ken do it, he'll have his finger in every one.
here, I'm gonna stand up.
I'm pretty far down enough here.
I'm not gonna catch up.
Ready? 1, 2, 3. One, two, three.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you. Thank you.
Under my head.
Thank you.
Congratulations.
Thanks, Kevin.
Congratulations.
Congratulations.
Okay. All right, board members, next on our agenda is item,
Did just the money
oh,
for the.
that's right, I'm sorry.
I'd make a motion to approve the expense associated with the background checks necessary to hire the next firefighter to fill the vacancy created by the promotions.
Support.
All right, we've got a motion,
Oh,
motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr.
Mr.
I didn't hear.
Batante said he got in
Mr.
there.
Batanti, good. All right, discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on our agenda is item D1, regarding hiring, or basically some temporary hours for an employee in the accounting department. Mr. Witt?
Yes, board. As you're maybe aware, our accounts payable person has been on short-term disability leave. She'd been off completely for a period of time. Now she's intermittently working, usually about a half day every day. But this has put us behind in many areas in the accounting office, especially preparing for some of the year-end stuff. So we're looking to essentially backfill for this vacancy. A lot of the work is essentially going to be filing, doing some of the grunt work that anybody can do to leave some of the more technical work for our accounts payable person when she's in the office. We've been looking, we've had an individual who'd been filling in part-time in the assessing department. and she had performed well there. So the recommendation is to hire Miss Lisa, to continue employing Miss Lisa Giorgeni as a temporary employee in the accounting office at a rate of $12.50 per hour, with no benefits for up to 20 hours per week until the account payable position returns full times.
I'll make that motion.
I have a motion by Mr. York. Is there support?
Support.
Support by Mr. Servial. Discussion?
Can I make a comment?
Yeah, sure.
I spoke with Mr. Clark today. Actually, it was about another item, and he had brought this item up to me. Unfortunately, we don't know how long the person there is gonna be off, but in talking with Mr. Clark, it would be nice, I don't know if we need to make a motion tonight, but with the transitions last year between the finance department, some things got, I don't know, some things need to get done and can't seem to get caught up. You got W-2s and this and that. That being said, I'm sure that Mr. Clark would appreciate it if we allow her to stay on to help collect things for the upcoming audit. If you know, I don't know if I need to make that part of the motion or.
You know, I don't, unfortunately, I don't see the individual
Okay.
being back to full-time prior to that, but if it comes
Okay,
to that,
I
we
don't
can,
know, I was just,
yeah.
since it's here, I wanna give them all the help to get caught up since we were without Mr. Spencer for, you know, whatever, or without a finance director for, you know, a couple months there, and the year end is always tough, trying to get the W-2s out, and then you got the audit, you know, getting all of those documents together, you know, shortly thereafter, so.
Right.
Well, and the other thing is, we do have, per the collective bargaining agreements, we do have, you know, the right to backfill. But if we were to cross that line, I think we'd have to have a separate motion if we were gonna hire additional help beyond the backfilling. So let's just say that
More of
the-
a seasonal temporary need, which we are
Correct.
allowed to do, but it's
which
a
are allowed to,
different.
but I think we'd wanna take separate board action. So I think at this point, if we're saying, look, the person's working 20 hours a week, we can backfill for the 20 hours. In the end, it's really a cost savings. It
Yeah,
costs
but I'm
less.
just saying, if he needs her because of the timelines and everything, I don't really have a problem with that.
Oh, no, I
Yeah.
agree, and I think so too. I think we would wanna make separate, we'd wanna
That's
take
fine.
separate board action,
Yeah.
or
Well,
have a
this
separate.
motion says until, right, 20 hours a week until
Right.
the accounts payable person can return. So does that help cover that, or?
Well, right, but the point being is, let's just say that she came back tomorrow full-time.
Oh, I see, I see.
I think
what
Mr.
you're
York was
No.
saying we could probably still use the help
Right.
to catch
I
up
see.
and prepare for the audit, but I think we'd wanna take separate action because
Okay.
we'd be employing her under a different section,
I see.
or the permission or the agreement.
Yeah, and at that point, you'd really wanna set an hour limit.
I see.
In
Good
addition
point.
to that
Good
kind of
point.
thing, so.
Right,
Okay.
but we agree that I think we're certainly willing to support the accounting department, so. Further discussion?
Just a question, so the employee that's, on part leave, is paid partially the salary?
Partially by the
and-
township and partially by our
Right,
insurance
so-
carrier.
Okay.
So
Thank
we're,
you.
we are receiving,
Fire engine.
you know, this will still
Or
be
ambulance.
less expensive than employing someone
Right,
full-time.
so, understood, thank you.
All right,
And Mr. Clark asked if he should be here tonight. He's preparing for the pending nuptials of his daughter this weekend, and I said, you know what, it's probably better that you're at home you know, to keep your marriage happy, so.
I think he's preparing for the 8 o'clock kickoff,
Yeah, maybe.
being a football official, but,
Yeah.
he may squeeze a little bit of the game in tonight.
yeah. I think he said something about the tuck shop having the game on.
Any further discussion? Hearing none, we have a motion by Mr. York with support by Mr. Servial to authorize the finance director to hire Ms. Lisa Giorgenti as a temporary employee for the accounting department at a rate of $12.50 per hour with no benefits for up to 20 hours a week until the accounts payable person can return to full-time duties. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, Board. Next on the agenda, item E1. Board members, we've received an application for appointment to the Beautification Commission from Mrs. Carol Wolf. Mrs. Wolf has been a Beautification Commission volunteer in the past and is currently a member of the Harrison Township Library Board. Mrs. Wolf will replace the seat vacated by Mr. John Berger. She's definitely been an asset to the township as a citizen volunteer and board member, and I would recommend her appointment for a 2-year term to expire January 9, 2019.
So moved.
Is there support?
Support.
Got a motion by Mr. Witt with support by Mr. Tominello. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment, all those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, motion carries. Thank you, board. We've also received an application for reappointment to the Beautification Commission from Mr. Herbert Lorenz. Mr. Lorenz has been an asset to the Beautification Commission and the community for several years. I would recommend his reappointment for a 2-year term to expire January 9, 2019.
So moved.
Support.
A motion by Mr. Patanti with support by Mr. York.
How long has he been on there? Long, long time. I bet you 20 years.
I would agree with the long part. I wouldn't begin to guess. Discussion, board members? Hearing none and seeing no public comment?
30-plus years.
30-plus years.
Yeah, it
Okay,
says.
good. I missed it.
I was looking for it.
All right. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, board. Next on the agenda, item F1. Now, board members, the Macomb County Sheriff's Department, in conjunction with the county's Office of Emergency Management, has prepared the attached agreement for fire and EMS 911 dispatching services. Currently, we use one firefighter on duty at all times for this service. By contracting with the Sheriff's Department for dispatch services, we will free up or have one additional firefighter at all times able to respond to calls. So really, it is primarily a function of efficiency. There's also a proposal attached which outlines the services that we'll be providing. I am recommending that we execute the 2-year agreement with Macomb County Sheriff's Department at a startup cost of $183,189, billed in equal monthly installments, and service fees to provide the service for dispatch of $64,220 for 2017 and $139,941 for 2018. The difference in the fee is because the service isn't anticipated to be fully functional until June 1st of this year. So the 2017 fee structure is a tiered fee structure or a partial fee. For 2017. For 2018, we anticipate a full 12 months of service. There are, currently, we have a fiber optic line that runs from the sheriff's dispatch center at Comtech directly to Station 1, because the sheriffs are dispatched from Station 1 at the mini station. However, there is no direct communication from Station 1 to Station 2. So for Station 2 to be properly dispatched, we need fiber optics. We can do that one of two ways. One option is to purchase fiber optics, and I indicated it in the board packet. I think the cost for that was $221,650 to own our own fiber optics between the stations. The other option was $3,000 a month to lease that fiber optics from AT&T. So at that rate, you know, it still takes us quite a few years to be able to pay off.
70 months.
Right, yeah, and there's no saying what that future system might hold. So that's one issue. There's also hardware that they need to put in place. There's radio systems. This startup cost includes 6 desktop computers, 7 mobile data computers, rugged Dell books, modems, software licensing, maintenance fees associated with that software, plus what would be, I guess we'll call it IT support. The installation of all this equipment would be handled by Macomb County's IT department, and then on an ongoing basis, Macomb County would further continue to provide the tech, basically tech support for this equipment during the life of the contract.
Mr. Verkest, I know I'm 72 and maybe my memory isn't as good as it used to be, but I thought we heard a number of 150 or 160,000, and you stated that you were gonna try to negotiate that down to 110,000.
No,
Now
I definitely never said I'd negotiate.
Well, you
so-
said
yep.
you attempt to.
Yep, no, I never said I'd negotiate, so here's what's happened. What I did explain in the workshop was that what the county in essence had proposed to do was to charge a startup cost, and they wanted to begin to bill us for the annual dispatch service starting January 1. But they said we won't actually be able to dispatch you January 1, we'll dispatch you as soon as we can. Well, I had a problem with that, and I said, well, how can you charge me for a service that you're not providing? Well, it takes us time to train people and to put some things in place and so on and so forth. And I says, okay, but you've got to decide what your startup costs are and charge me a flat fee for the startup costs. And then you need to decide on a monthly or annual fee, and if you don't, in other words, if for whatever reason, come June 1st, they're not providing the service. I don't want to, I'm not comfortable with an open-ended contract. So at the time, they had proposed startup costs of maybe 130,000 and an annual fee of 140,000. So they were looking at 130, 140, and 140, and I said, well, if that's what your costs are, you need to separate that to say this is what it costs for equipment, training, installation, servicing, getting the system going. Then you need to give me an annual fee. And if you don't begin to provide me service, I'm not gonna pay for a service that I'm not, for whatever reason, if there's a problem with the fiber optics or what have you. So I had anticipated that, what I'd said was that the 130, say in fixed costs, was likely to go up, but the annual fee would go down. They're saying, well, okay, it's the same to us, so if you add the annual fee, what they anticipated to be the startup fee and their annual fee for year one, it's actually gone down, but they've put it more into startup and less into the
Okay, so
fee.
you said you wanted some itemization. Did you get itemization for this 183,000?
Yeah, the difference is, I think it shows that the service, I thought there was, I thought they indicated June 1. So the service included previous itemization for the, so in previous proposals, they itemized what all the equipment was and the licensing fees were, everything else. What they've done is they've transferred this to say that they'll begin service June 1 and invoice 7 equal monthly installments. The balance of that was in essence transferred to the startup or licensing fee. What they're saying is when they hire a dispatcher, there's a finite period of time they have to train that person before they can be functional. We had a lengthy discussion, both Harrison and Washington Townships, as well as the fire chiefs from both communities. I don't wanna call it a problem. The difficulty, what makes this different is we tend to see this as a service provider in a more private or commercial sense. So we tend to see this as a relationship where we might go to an engineering firm or a law firm or an IT service provider, and we say, we need this service. And they say, okay, we'll put somebody in there January 1 and we'll begin to charge you that. The dispatch operation at the sheriff's department has already entered into relationships with other communities, and not all of those relationships and those agreements have gone necessarily as planned. We agreed to restructure how the billing would be done so that we don't find ourselves in a scenario where other communities are still paying a fee and not receiving a service. So we've separated, here's your startup fees, that's what you can charge me. Here's what you begin to charge me June 1. If I'm not functioning June 1, I'm not paying you any additional dollars.
I understand all of that, but 183,000 seems like a lot of money. And in addition to that, we pay less than $140,000 a year for every deputy that we have. And I'm assuming that we're only, I believe the last time I looked, we only have an average of a little over 2 runs a day per station or altogether. There's like
Last year,
2,200 runs or something like that?
last year was 2,881 is the number I saw.
Okay, so, you know, if you amortize that out, you're coming out north of $70. If you take this for 2 years and say it's like $70 per run for dispatch.
Right, but right now, we're paying, let's say it costs, on average, $130,000 to employ a firefighter. Full load, you know, average cost between top and the bottom. We're paying 3 of those to get the same service that this is proposed. So if you add 130 times 3, you're looking at 390,000, which is significantly less than the cost of this. So by paying
significantly
this,
more.
significantly more. This is significantly less than that.
Yeah.
So if we look at the comparison between that cost versus the additional benefit of having firefighters out without, I mean, that's where the benefit is. It's not.
I understand it, but it seems like it still should be less because when they get done, if they had the whole county, maybe a half a dozen dispatchers could handle the whole county.
No, that's not true.
Yeah, so, couple of things. One is that.
Oh, come on.
Hey, hold on a minute. I'm responding to.
I'm sorry,
right.
I'm sorry.
The figure comes out, just last year was 8 runs per day, number one. That doesn't mean 8 calls per day, that means 8 runs per day. So there is more work involved, number one. Number two, it's important for us to understand that we really have 2 options. One option is to outsource this to the Macomb County Sheriff's Department. The other option is to continue to do it ourselves. There isn't a third option. We explored that and we were interested in that. Number 4, I'm not certain that this is a realistic number per year for the service. I also don't think the Office of Emergency Management or the Sheriff's Department is certain. They're not in the business of selling services, but they've gone through this process and they said, look, we'll do it for 2 years. We'll take another look at it and see what it costs. I certainly don't want to speak for the chief. You guys are welcome to ask the chief. The chief in Washington and our very chief also don't think this is a good deal from the standpoint that this is a per call price that's accurate or in line with what it might cost in other areas. So I'll let the chief speak for himself. What I look at is I can either continue to spend $400,000 a year to do dispatch inefficiently, or I can begin to establish a relationship with the Sheriff's Department. In the past, when I look at the relationship we have regarding outsourcing police service, I think that's evolved to be a good relationship. They've come back to us in future contracts and actually lowered the price per deputy. They've got a better handle, I think, on that service. I think this is a different kind of an animal, and I know with certainty when I look at the relationship and the established agreements they had with Chesterfield and, with Clinton Township and with Sterling Heights, they went into it fully expecting people were gonna leave their community, come to work for Sheriff's Department. They've made a lot of missteps, and I think they're a little bit gun shy on promising things. That's just my own gut
So they
instinct.
may be padding it to cover their,
No, I'm not saying that. What I'm saying is I don't think they know fully what that cost is. But here's the bottom line for me. For $140,000 a year, I can outsource dispatch and do it more efficiently. When we went through the multi-community, county-wide fire committee to work with possibly a Sterling Heights, Clinton, Mount Clemens, and Harrison. Their initial analysis, the company that was hired to do that, said, the way we're doing dispatch right now is substandard. There's a better way to do it. We think we're making a switch to that.
well, I really don't have as much problem with the 140. You're talking $20,000 one way or the other maybe. I mentioned what a deputy cost, but the almost $184,000 I don't see any justification for it on paper, what I have before me here. And it seems like an absorbent amount of money, and you just gave me a lot of reasons why they're trying to cover their bases here because maybe they misstepped somewhere else.
No, I didn't say
Somewhere-
that. What I said is, I didn't say they're trying to cover their bases because they missed
I'm
that.
surmising this.
Well, I understand, but I didn't say that. What I'm saying to you is, what I'm saying is I don't believe that they're in a position to say with certainty what that cost is. They haven't done this efficiently yet. They haven't taken over another community. There's a learning curve involved in this.
Well, from
I do-
from my standpoint, as I stated just a minute ago, I don't have much problem with the 140,000, because at the end of the day, if they ramp up and their costs, I'm assuming they're honest about this, if their costs aren't that much, then they're gonna lower it after a couple of years. The problem is this $184,000, I'd like to see something more, and I can't believe that they won't, sharpen their pencil and look at this a little bit better if we don't vote on this tonight.
And here's the other side of it. I mean, just, they're not a private contractor making a profit on this.
Right.
I mean, that's my impression in some of the conversations. They're giving us what their cost is. Sometimes to their
I don't see
detriment.
those costs, though, that's what I'm saying.
Right, so,
I don't understand, so we don't get into like a half-hour argument, right? They came up, I think what Bill's saying is they came up with this number. Why can't we see what that number's comprised of? And then we don't have a discussion, right?
Correct.
Because I have the same concerns, I'll be honest, I'm just
Sure.
not jumping in.
this is their third proposal. The first and second proposals, as they presented them, we felt collectively, in conversation with Washington Township, because they're doing the same thing there, we felt that what they were proposing wasn't a practical business relationship proposal. In each of those, they gave us breakdowns for the equipment. They told us, this is what this software costs, this is what this costs, this is what that costs. Had anyone asked me prior to this, I would have been happy to share the prior two proposals. I didn't include the prior two proposals because we're not voting on those proposals, but they've supplied to me and to the chief multiple breakdowns of what they have.
Well, if I-
What they did do that was different, though, was they said, but we want to start charging you January 1, but we won't actually provide the service, but that's when we'll hire someone and we'll start training them. And I said, well, that's not, it doesn't work that way. I can't assume the burden of whether there's a delay, whether you're good at training, whether someone quits, whether someone comes on. If there's a cost you have, you tell me what those fixed costs are, give me that bill. You tell me what the fee is per month, give me that bill, and that's what we'll vote on. We don't have to vote on this now. We can table this. I can show you those breakdowns. But I think to Mr. Witt's point, this is not a scenario of us going back to them and saying sharpen their pencil. They're saying this is the estimate. We're not bartering with them. They're saying to us, this is what we believe our fixed costs
I
are.
do understand what you said. They're not sure, because they haven't done this type of dispatch, whether or not what is the figure per year, 140,000? They're not sure about that number. I understand that. This startup cost, they absolutely know. They know how many hours training they're gonna have to give somebody. I don't care if we paid for 6 months, I think that'd be exorbitant, because you're paying for 24/7 for 6 months. Training doesn't take that long. If they got people that can't pick it up much faster than that, then they better find new people.
Mr. Rickes, a couple thoughts. One, the amounts that we're talking about are more than the original discussion some time ago.
Correct.
And I understand that.
Yep.
On the notion of the actual outsourcing of dispatch, I'm absolutely in favor of. At $140,000 a year, that's the equivalent of 3 people on board, right? It's the equivalent of having 3. And I think the residents expect us to provide, to look for ways to provide the proper levels of coverage at a reduced expense, and I think this is one of the ways to do that. I would, however, agree that for $180,000, I get this is not a competitive bid, but I think that for $180,000, we could get an itemized list. And so I would recommend that we see that, and I understand that we might not, and likely won't be negotiating, because this is not a competitive environment, but I think it's reasonable to ask for a breakdown.
Right,
But
their initial proposal for their startup costs, those startup costs being, if we go to the last page in this, the startup cost would be for them, let's see here, I apologize.
They have it on there, 6 desktop computers, 7 mobile data computers.
Right.
But that's
Mr.
just
Request, in the interest of time, instead of trying to cover that today, Mr. Witt said we could table this.
No, I
No,
didn't say that.
I said we could
Okay,
table it.
well-
I don't wish to table it, I would like to approve it, but let's just say that I gave you that breakdown. Let's just say, what I was trying to say was this. They've already provided me in their first proposal a breakdown that was 130,000 and change for all of the items that are listed here. All of these, the network hardware, switch, uninterruptible power supplies, drops, racks, 6 desktop computers, 7 mobile computers, modems, docking stations, antennas, adapters, 2 MCU light packages, 2 UF radio packages, so that each station will have, in the event that for some reason the fiber went down, UHF radio would be the backup method of dispatch to the station. Installations by their technical services division in the radio shop. One-time fee for licensing for the following software: NetMotion, Core, MS Office, Symantec, Aegis Fire Mobile, GIS, Fire Station Alerting Platform, so on and so forth. They've given us that. That number was 130.
The
Right.
list you just read, were those itemized? Because I have no idea if that's a $100 item or a $10,000 item.
Does
Yes,
it
they,
matter?
what I'm saying is they itemized that for us as far back as September when they gave the first
Maybe I
proposal
didn't
for it.
phrase it correctly. You read about 15 items maybe?
Yeah.
Were those 15 items line items for dollar amount for each one and it added up to 130,000?
Correct. That's correct. What I'm saying is they gave us that. Then, and not to beat a dead horse, they said, we want to start charging you for a service, but we're not sure when it'll go. I said, well, that's a problem. You need to give me a fixed cost for startup and a cost for service. They gave me this. What I'm saying is let's just say I put that in front of you. Whether you agree with those breakdown items or not, what I guess I'm trying to say is we have really one of two choices. We either say, no, we're not going to outsource dispatch, and we're going to continue to use a pad of paper and a full-time firefighter sitting in the station all the time, or we're going to go with the county. In other words, this is a relationship with only one provider.
You don't
We
have to sell
can't-
me on the outsourcing. I'm on board for that also.
Right, but let's
I'm
say you
just
don't agree with the
arguing- I'm just
130.
arguing this number,
But let's say
that's all.
let's say on the list that they give back, and it says a computer is $1,000, and you say, I can go to the store and buy that for $900.
No,
Can I
No, but
just
what's
add-
it gonna
let-
change?
Let me add a
That's-
point,
that's
let me
my-
add a point.
I mean, if we-
Here's what I think the point is. I know, what you're
But I'm
saying
trying to
is
finish
not-
my
I'm
thought here.
sorry,
and
you go right ahead.
So
sorry, you're
when we
right.
get this, and you know, if we get this from them, the bulk of this cost is set by those providers for those different softwares, and I think that adds up to about 130,000, including some of the computers that they're going to install here. There's costs that aren't listed out on there that they have to incur, including the installation of stations at Comtech to handle our additional service load and the training, which is added onto here. And that's the number that adds to the 130 over and above. So if they gave us a sheet that says the computers are $1,000 a piece, and we say, man, we can buy computers cheaper than that, we're not going to buy computers. We're going to say, no, we're buying them from this survey. You know what I mean? With these, it's not going to change the outcome.
Can I,
But,
whenever you're done.
and I'm just, one more thought. Delaying on this, every time we delay and don't do this, to me, is additional time that we have 3 firefighters sitting there with a pad of paper who could be out there helping our residents.
I thought they weren't starting until June, is that correct?
But if we
Right,
do-
but if we wait a month, they'll start in July.
They'll start
We
in
can
July.
wait 3
So,
months and they'll start in October.
I
I
wouldn't
mean,
suggest
wherever.
wait a month.
No, no.
So you ask why. Would it change my opinion? No. But to be honest, we have a fiduciary responsibility to the township. And I know that there have been breakdowns over the past, but we're being asked to spend $180,000, and I think it's a prudent request. And I don't envision voting no, but it's a prudent request to see a list. I
And
believe
and the
that
time
that's
to make
the
that
answer.
prudent request would have been last Tuesday,
Okay.
Wednesday, Thursday,
So-
and I could have provided it so we could
You're
move forward.
100% right.
So,
But upon
that-
further consideration.
Sure.
And what we do at the board is we deliberate.
Oh,
And how many
absolutely.
times we said these are working meetings where ideas, just let me finish my thought.
Yeah.
Ideas from collective discussion arise, things that we might not have thought about.
But this wasn't an idea from collective discussion. This was an idea from somebody who came in and said, immediately, this is what I have.
Well, I would agree that I would like to wait 2 weeks and see a detailed list. I support the notion, but to show the residents that we're paying strict attention, I'd like to see the detail. 2 weeks.
I could probably give you that list before the meeting ends if you want to push this back to later in the agenda.
That would be okay with me too.
I just want to bring up one more point that it's not 183, 189, it's actually like 219 with the ASC leased fiber. So that's an annual, that would be an annual cost. So just
I'm
remember-
missing what you're talking about
Right.
there, I'm sorry.
Isn't it $3,000 a month for the AT&T fiber?
This is all inclusive.
That's
That's
included in
their-
the,
That's
they're
included in the
doing it.
183?
Everything is included.
Okay, in the 183.
That breakdown that I gave, that last page showing that was to explain that this
Okay,
is,
so that speaks for the cost, one of the reasons why it went up.
They're including that $3,000 a month in the cost?
in the cost. That's in the annual cost,
'Cause
because they
that's,
gave
that's
us,
not the way that I read it. Maybe
no,
I'm
that's
reading
in,
it wrong.
that's in that
this is a separate, this is a
139,
separate,
941.
Didn't you just tell us that we need to connect station 1 and 2 together for either a 200 and some $1,000 or $2,000 or $3,000 a month?
correct.
Well,
We
where is
told
that
them-
where is that included here? That's on top of it, isn't it?
No, it's not on top of it, that's what I'm
We don't
telling
have
you.
to get
Yeah, no,
testy,
no,
I mean,
I'm
we're
not
just-
testy, I'm saying, no, I'm saying again, what I'm showing you in the last page, this was an assemblance of what they gave us in previous things describing what work they're agreeing to do for us. This is, that last page is a listing of all the things that make up that $183,000 number. They said to us in the beginning, they said, if you want, you can lease fiber for $3,000 a month, or you can go out and buy it. And my reasoning was, I don't see any value in purchasing it when I'm making right now what's less than a 2-year commitment. So, we said to them early on, there is no value in spending $221,000 up front. Two problems with that, for whatever it's worth. The one-time fee to install that comes with an unknown period of time to actually install that fiber, so that could be a year. Right now, that fiber exists, but they said you can lease it, it's $3,000, and it takes some, I don't know, 12 weeks or something like that.
Mr. Burkett, just so I'm clear, the 139,941 in the year 2018.
Yep.
That includes one year leased fiber,
Correct.
so then
That's
actually.
36,000.
So actually, that's, we're back down to around the original cost we were talking about, 121.
Well, no, it,
104.
yeah, it's 10, right, 10,
Oh, yeah, yeah,
103.
104. So we're very close to the numbers we were talking about originally anyway, then, if you include that.
Right, they gave us different prices. They said you can do it this way, you can do it that way. That upfront cost, based on the discussions we had, if we're financing an ambulance, I told them I'm not gonna bring to my board $250,000 in upfront costs and upwards of a year of delay. There's no value.
Okay.
Especially when I don't know if 2 years from now, someone invents something, I mean, let me just say, fiber optics are really cool, but, so are telegraphs, I mean, I don't know what technology is coming 5 years from now that makes that fiber optic obsolete, so why invest $250,000?
I understand, the whole thing
Right.
is there's upgrades to that as well, we use a lot of that in my.
Can
my
we hear from the
occupation
chief
and-
on this?
Sure.
Just one thing about that fiber. Didn't we put fiber over to the fire department? Jason, I know SYO, our computer guy, and I didn't call him on this, but I think that this cost is a little high and there's other options. And I hate to say this, but John Gaber, who's a resident, he's the deputy, manager over in Hamtramck, he just went through this whole process, switching over all of their phone lines from AT&T, and there's some other options that are cheaper than this. He didn't pay $3,000. I had a discussion with him about this was a couple months ago, and he went with a different provider at a much lower cost
Well-
than AT&T. And unfortunately, I don't know what that is.
AT&T
right now,
is
but-
trying to move away from wired connections. They're
Correct.
going to something called G5 wireless. And they're trying to switch everything over to that. So I would suspect if they're successful, that we wouldn't be renting that,
That's the
that
nice thing
cable
about
that
leasing as
long.
opposed to buying.
Right. Buying is ridiculous. 217,000 or 221. It's a lot of $3,000 go into that number.
But let's be honest, right? You're gonna lease that for 20 years. It's not something, once you get the system up and running, you're gonna have that cost every year. That system will be here 20 years from now, so,
But that's like 180 some months, which comes out to a lot of years.
no, I'm just saying, there might be some other
And
options to lower that. I don't know what those are right now.
that monthly usage fee is not 3,000 a month. I know that's the way that it reads, but when they gave us their two proposals, one proposal was $3,000 greater than the other in the initial proposal.
I'm confused as to why, if we need to lease a line between two fire stations, why would we be dealing with the county on this at all? It's our line, if we installed it or if we leased it.
Right, and here's the reason why, so that you understand. We had the same discussion about desktops, about laptops. So for example, can I, on my lunch break, if I'm a firefighter and I'm on my lunch break, can I sit down and, I'm taking a course at Macomb, and I need to type a paper for Macomb. What access do I have for these computers? What am I allowed to use them for and what not? So we had a lengthy discussion about that, and this is what you have to understand. We're paying for a service. All I want is a service. I want 911 calls to go there and have them dispatch as fast as possible so people can respond. They're saying to us, we can provide that service, but part of our fee structure is going to be based on whether there's purchased or leased fiber. I'm
You're talking
saying,
about AT&T now, aren't you?
I'm talking about the county. You need to understand, there's this, I'm not going to the county saying, no, I don't think I want HP computers, and I would like this UPS to run this way. We're not doing that. This is a one-time service. They're providing the service. They're saying in order to provide the service, for us to be most efficient, we want to assign a laptop to every rig you have.
I
We want
understand that,
in,
and I don't
right?
have a problem with that.
Right, but what I'm saying
I don't
is
have a problem with whatever they want to supply and probably the price.
Right.
I still think that there might be $50,000 or $60,000 in here that's not accountable.
It isn't. It's for training. That's the whole point. Their first one was they're saying to us, we need additional fees in there for labor and training to get up to
I'm
speed.
talking about including that training. But without seeing an itemized list, I have no idea. I never did see one at a workshop which I attended or at previous meeting when we discussed this.
It's true.
I don't think it's unreasonable for me to ask for it now.
I didn't say that it is. All I said is that it would have been a lot more helpful to get that information or that request last week. I could have provided that to you. I can provide it to you in the next 15 minutes. Andrew is here. I got to pull up and forward to him the email. All I was trying to say is when you look it over, you're still going to have to make the same decision then as you will now. You'll have to look at it and say, I like this or I don't like it, which goes back to saying, we're not going to go back to the county and they'll say, you caught us. We were trying to sneak 50 grand in. Okay, we'll do it for 130. They're going to say either give me 183 or don't do dispatch. That's their proposal.
And one other thought, Mr. Verkest, about whether we can do bits and pieces of this for less. I have viewed this as a turnkey solution, right? Where the county comes and says, this is what we're gonna do, and we turn it over to them.
Right.
It may not, there may be parts of it that might be done for less if we were doing our own independent contracting, but we're not.
Correct.
So I understand that, but I do think if you can supply that list before the end of the meeting, great, let's just do that.
Let me be clear, I'm not suggesting that we piecemeal this and try to supply anything. My understanding as far as this fiber optic cable between the two stations, that is a cable that's owned by AT&T if we're gonna lease it. If something goes wrong with that cable, the county is not gonna maintain it. AT&T is the one that's gonna maintain their own cable. So I
Right,
don't
but the
even know why
county,
the
but the
county's
county's the
involved in
one,
it.
but the county's the one that's gonna pay AT&T $3,000 a month. Not us.
I honestly don't read that, but
Well,
it says that we must provide the fiber service, and when you look at taking that 139, that's essentially, like Mr. Batante had pointed out, that's essentially 3 people, 8 hours a day, essentially. And if you divide that 139,941 divided by 3, that comes out to about $46,000 per person, which by the time you put a salary plus benefits, health care, and this and that, $46,000 is probably in the ballpark on even a $20 an hour employee. If you take that $30,000, $36,000 off, their full boat isn't $34,000 per employee.
We're
It's
using,
gonna
we're
be more
using a
closer to the
firefighter to do
46.
that today, right?
Correct.
We use a firefighter to dispatch
Correct, but I'm
today.
just saying, I find it hard to believe that they're including that $36,000 lease
You mean
cost
in terms of
based
what
on those
their expenses?
based on those numbers.
Yeah, they're
The
gonna be much more
46,000
efficient at this because they're not just dispatching for Harrison, they're dispatching for everybody, whoever they have contract with. So I'm assuming that they're gonna be busier than our firefighter would be for dispatch. You know, I understand we need him there if we stay with the system we have, but he's not very busy as far as dispatch is concerned because we don't have that many runs a day.
I
So,
just sent it to you. Yeah, print out 7 copies, please. Yeah, we can table it. What I understand, let me just say, believe me, I've been talking about this, I don't know, chief, it was in September we started talking about it. I mean, I don't know how long we've met with the county.
well, I'd like to hear the chief say what his opinion is on this whole
Absolutely,
thing
yeah.
right
No,
now.
I-
And plus, I'd like to hear if he has any knowledge of what Sterling Heights and Clinton Township have paid for startup fees, which they're 3 times, almost 4 times the size of us.
I think their contract is different. Our contract is parallel to Washington Township's contract, but the chief wouldn't possibly be able to comment that, I'm not sure.
Well, I guess I would say, I think I would echo the sentiments that it's the move to a central dispatch center and getting a firefighter on the road and eliminating what's referred to as a secondary PSAP, that additional phone call. It's gonna improve response times. It's more efficient. We've had occasions like we talked about where officers, battalion chiefs are back in dispatch. So it's clearly not the way we want to operate at the fire department moving forward. With that, based on the ruling that the sheriff's department doesn't transfer 911 calls, there's no other options to go to a different PSAP with the calls. So we have only one other option, and it's Comtech in the Macomb County Sheriff's Office. So, with that being said, there's a number of things that I'm frankly not comfortable with, but again, I don't know what the options are, and we met with the sheriff representative. You know, I had to call over to Clinton Township because I can't understand the annual fee. I know in talking with other PSAPs, there's a more of a billing model based on the call volume, and a cost per call comes out to around $25, $30, and when I do our numbers, it's coming out more like $45 to $50 a call. So I called over to Clinton Township. They're paying $17,505 a month is what I was told, which works out to about $210,000 to $211,000 a year. And they're pulling 4 times as many runs as we're pulling. Now, I'm rounding up to 3,000 for us, and I'll say they do 12,000. So the math doesn't add up to me, and I stated that at the meeting we were at. And the training statement that they made, Clinton Township has been paying that $17,000 a month for some time now, and are not receiving the service. So all that money they've been collecting from Clinton Township, as far as I'm concerned, they could be training dispatchers. I don't know why they have to charge us, but I didn't get an answer for that. So, no, I don't like the numbers myself. But again, it's moving over there. Is it the right thing to do? It is, for the efficiency of getting the firefighter on the road. As to the startup cost, I don't have numbers from Clinton or Sterling. I don't know if their contracts, as Mr. Verkest said, I don't know if their contracts were written that way, so I can't speak to, I have to believe that the computers and the hardware is all being purchased off the county bid list, and so that's a set price. The software is being purchased from Tyler Technologies. That's a set price from the software vendor. So I wouldn't see where there's any,
Well, don't they already
anything
have
there.
that software? Aren't they in operation with any community yet?
They are dispatching Sterling Heights Police, Sterling Heights Fire. and
How are they
Clinton
doing that
Township
without the
Police.
software?
They have the software. It would be us purchasing the licensing.
Well,
for
we're
the
not
software.
purchasing, but if they're, hang on,
It's
I'm
per-
gonna answer your
it's per
question.
community?
No, it's per station. So you buy per, it would be like saying, it would be like you saying that if you have Windows on your computer, you can buy another computer and you don't have to pay for
Okay,
Windows.
that's all I was trying to get to.
Right, it's per station.
No, probably per computer. Some of
You're
these is
paying,
probably.
you're
Right,
paying
per-
licensing fees
Not
for,
per, I don't mean station, per
Per
workstation.
workstation,
Right, that's what I meant.
right, every machine that's carrying that software has to have a license for that software, and that's purchased at a cost. So I think those are set fees. I don't understand the billing model, and I don't know, and adding Washington Township at the same rate, I mean, if we're staffing a position, if Washington Township is staffing a position, I know they're committed to 3 designated fire dispatchers with Sterling and Clinton. I don't know that they're collecting that additional money from us in Washington. I don't know that that's adding an additional designated fire dispatcher,
But it,
so.
at some point, you know, I think part of the conversation that I heard from you guys having with the sheriff's office was they don't know how to bill this yet. And they might come back and say after our 2-year contract's done and move to a different model once they get some sort of critical mass across communities. It's difficult to get that startup going, and you probably have to charge in a different way. But as they look at this, I mean, they're not, maybe I'm wrong, but I thought the conversations where they're gonna look at this again in 2 years and say, here's how we're gonna bill it. I mean, and then my other question for you, Chief, would be, if we did nothing, this 183,189, some portion of that's not gonna, we need to make an investment in it.
Oh, there's no doubt, our technology is extremely antiquated, and the technology upgrades have to occur at the fire department, whether we do nothing or whether we go to contact, so you're exactly right.
So I appreciate the deputy supervisor bringing this in. This is their initial proposal. Actually, it's one revision of their initial proposal, but it would have been the previous proposal that has a breakdown for the various types of service. So their base cost for the service, you see, is $107 a year for 17, if it was 12 months, 108,000. Now, and I apologize, because there's a summary on the back. There's a total costs summarized on the back. They have hardware itemized, computers, software licensing, yearly maintenance costs. And then the 4th page has their totals.
Okay, on page 2, it says connectivity. It covers a 10 megabit, $3,000 per month through AT&T. It doesn't say that this is the line that's gonna connect the 2 stations. I would take this to mean that that's connecting Harrison Township to Contact.
Nope, if you read the paragraph above it, it says currently the county network is provided to the sheriff's office substation located at Station 1. I explained that earlier. The below pricing is based on fiber connectivity from Station 1
Okay,
to Station 2.
I apologize.
No, that's okay. I mean, you might not, I did mention that earlier, but what they're saying is that Station 2 is not connected.
So in regards to that $3,000 a month lease is 6.15 years. If you take the 221, it's 6.15 years on the buyback.
Okay? Even if I wanted to purchase the private conduit, I would still recommend that we begin the process of leasing the fiber so that we could get this up and running. And if we find that after what we're looking at is probably about 1.5 years of service, if we find that it's reasonable and worthwhile, then I might be interested in making that permanent purchase. But at this point, it's not likely, in my opinion, but if we were to approve this contract, it is possible that I could get to the end of 2018 and say, you know what? This isn't working. As we approach the end of 2018, they could come back and say, you know what? Our costs were really off. We need 300,000 a year. They could go back and say, wow, our costs were off. We only need 80,000 a year. I won't know that until then, but in essence, no small part of what we're looking at is entering into an agreement with what I would consider to be a trusted provider with history of providing services to the township efficiently. This is just a new concept for them. This is not something, realistically, it's fair to say that right now, they have not successfully executed this, in my opinion, with another community. They are providing it in Sterling, right? But even then, they're still working some bumps out.
Sterling Heights was an easier solution for them because Sterling Heights was using what was then called New World, now it's called Tyler Technologies, the software program. That was a Sterling Heights program, so it didn't require the transition from another software, so it was an easier transition. So Sterling Heights came up and running immediately. The Clinton Township Fire Department was on a different software, and they have yet to been able to transition them over. Depending on who you talk to, you'll get a different story as to why that is.
How will this tie into our pad of paper technology? We gonna be okay with that?
Yeah, it's a slight
Is there a
upgrade.
conflict?
Is it compatible?
Hey, I'll
One
tell
or
you
two
what,
generations.
there's a lot to be said for using a pad and paper sometimes
Until
over
you're the-
technology, because technology has a tendency to just all of a sudden go poof on you at the worst time.
Well, it's important to understand that right now, when you call 911, here's what happens. You call 911, you tell them your problem, they say thanks, they take that information, they hang up, and then they call the fire department, and they give that information. Then, the guy who answers the phone at the fire department, after he takes all that information, he then sends people out to respond. Now, it's a little bit more efficient than that because the call does come in overhead, so guys have an idea of whether or not it's a structure fire or whether it's someone who has a bee sting. But the point is that currently the process we have, in addition to being, as far as I'm concerned, not efficient as far as chat. Don't get me wrong, I'm not knocking the firefighters. They're doing the best job they can with what they have. It's also important to note that because we have this antiquated system, we're paying between $3,000 to $4,000 a month for a phone line that AT&T wants us to get rid of, that runs between the stations so that the phone can ring and everybody can hear each other. And no one knows how we can replace that unless we leave it there, but AT&T said, we don't care, we're trying to get rid of that technology, so we want to abandon that.
There's the money that you're gonna spend on the leased line right there.
Yeah, we're paying more than that in phone service. We could provide phone service for hundreds of dollars a month to the fire station, but we're spending about 37, I think, hundred a month right now.
That's a
Lease
T1
fiber
line.
option
No,
31,
it's not a T1
121.
line. No, it's Centrex,
It's an old Centrex system.
yeah. And there is no replacement. I mean, we would, keep in mind that if we said we're not doing this, we'd be purchasing phone systems and dispatch systems independent of this for certainly 5 figures. Redesigning technology. What we have right now, we've delayed scrapping the phone system because we've waited to get online with Comtech.
Well, while we go through the spreadsheet, Mr. Booth, have you seen this agreement?
The agreement, yes, it was with our packet.
And do you agree with section E, hold harmless? No issues with, how I read it is the county will basically defend us if they do something wrong. However, B basically says if our firefighters do something wrong, they're not gonna defend us. But if I'm reading C correctly, it says if the county sheriff does something wrong, they're not going to defend us. Is this?
But we have a separate contract with the county sheriff where they have a hold harmless that's separate from this portion.
Does this is there any?
Right.
I'm assuming that we do.
Yeah.
The reason I'm
It's-
asking is this is
The
probably.
language is almost, is eerily similar between the two contracts.
Yeah, it
I don't-
is. It's
I-
the
they,
same.
they cut and paste a lot from the two. I mean, just,
I
because I
just-
read it too and had the same
Now, we're
thought.
talking about dollars here,
Oh,
but
yeah.
this is
Well,
something. a
I'll
little
give
bit
you
bigger.
another example. If you look at item M, termination. Originally, they had something like 30 days. We said, well, look, we couldn't, which is a copy from the police contract. And we said, that's kind of silly. I couldn't create a police department or find police protection in 30 days. If we go to this system and they say, we changed our mind. I don't want a 30-day opt-out. There are cases where you want that, and we had that in there, but it was actually Supervisor O'Leary in Washington Township said, why would we want 30-day opt-out? You know, which again, for whatever it's worth, it points back to, you know, when we've got some shifty character like Mr. Huth providing legal services, we want to be able to get out anytime we can. We'll just hire another lawyer at a moment's notice. But when you're getting a service, you're saying, look, we can't just turn this on and off at a moment. We don't just go to one of the other 4 providers for this. That's why I'm saying that I understand this is, and I suppose, I don't wanna sound like this deliberation is resistance or hesitation. I've been thinking about this. I don't blame anybody for saying, gee whiz, this is a lot of money. I kind of go back to what the chief said. The fire chiefs have said, you know, we're not really crazy about this. What is it, Tyler Technologies? There's other EMS-style fire dispatch software that we like better and we think would work better. Sterling Heights said, well, we like this one. This is the one we want. The county said, okay, we looked at all of them. That's the one we're choosing. Now, I don't think this is a scenario of a horse-drawn buggy compared to a jet airliner, but they're 2 different products. And one product seems to be more favored by more of the fire departments than the other. Okay, that was a choice they made. We weren't at the table. We didn't have a choice. Someone else made that decision. It can't be horrible. I don't think Sterling Heights chose a software package that was, you know, the worst thing out there. But everybody's got their favorites. This is the product they offer. This is the service they offer. It dovetails with the police service we have. If we're gonna work toward a county-wide system, both for dispatch and possibly for fire, this is what it's eventually gonna be. I don't have another proposal I can show you from another provider, because there is no one else. And it's important to understand, so when you say there's no one else, here's what happens. If you call 911, we don't call 911 for fire and 912 for police. We dial 911 for anything. So that call coming in is essentially either fire EMS or police. Since the sheriff provides police service, 911 in Harrison Township is going to Comtech. Now, if we said, well, we're gonna start our own police department, we'd get our 911 calls and we could handle our own dispatch. Clinton did that, Sterling Heights did that, they decided they didn't wanna do it anymore and it was cheaper to outsource it. But since 911 calls for police come to Comtech, what they're saying is Comtech, or the sheriff's department, is saying, we're not gonna have somebody else do dispatch. So no one else is gonna tell the sheriff's department employees where to go or how to respond. So since 911 calls are coming in to us, because they have to, because we're providing police, they're saying we're the only guy that's gonna take the call for fire. We aren't going to allow that call to go to another provider and have them dispatch the sheriff's cars. So you can't have it both ways. So one guy gets all the 911 calls. So our choice is either to keep doing what we're doing or to outsource it to them.
Thank you. So when we go back to the detail that was provided.
Yep.
And I clearly see on the back page where, 2018, 139,000 comes from 108 yearly cost and the maintenance, which is the lease of the, right, is that that's under the lease?
The maintenance cost, the 31,121 is the yearly maintenance cost with leased fiber option.
Okay, right, okay.
Right.
So what I'm trying to come back to, Mr. Supervisor, is the 183. So when I go back through the detail, network hardware 1710, I'm trying to come back to what adds up to this 183.
They have an